I'm Dr. Leo Galland. I received my medical education and training at Harvard University and the New York University School of Medicine and have been practicing internal medicine for over 40 years.
Joining me today is Leo Galland, MD, board certified in internal medicine and internationally recognized as a pioneer in nutritional medicine and a founder of functional medicine.
I'm Dr. Leo Galland. I received my medical education and training at Harvard University and the New York University School of Medicine and have been practicing internal medicine for over 40 years. I became interested in nutritional medicine early on in my career because I realized that there were so many patients who were not being helped by conventional drug approaches to treatment. In fact, one of the things that would happen is I would have patients who went on a particular drug for a particular condition, and that drug would very often aggravate another condition that the person had. And I realized that's because of the way that most drugs work. They're designed to suppress one specific activity in the body, but there's no activity that the body has that isn't there to do something positive as well. And I realized that what's really important is establishing balance, not suppressing disease. And so for the past 35 years, my practice has focused on helping people establish balance in their bodies as a way to overcome illness.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Can we speak a little bit more in detail and what your specialties are? I know you're an expert in the leaky gut and amongst other diseases that you deal with.
Well, because of the way that my research and my clinical practice went, I began treating patients who have complex chronic problems, who'd been to many other doctors, many specialists, and who weren't getting the answers that they needed. And I became a kind of medical detective and explorer, looking for new solutions to complex problems. The first principle that guides my practice is recognizing that healing results from a partnership between the doctor and the patient. I can't heal someone else, and that person needs my guidance to heal themselves. The next set of principles that have guided my practice is realizing that merely suppressing illness with drugs is not a sustainable long-term solution. My goal is to try and help people establish balance by supporting those functions of their bodies that support balance and allow healing to occur. And that every person and every illness is unique. And so I have to try and understand, in order to help people, what is it that is special or unique about this person's illness. Now, I have not limited my practice by organ system or by the nature of the problem. Whatever anyone brings to me is what I try to help them with. Along the way, I realized that there were certain things that were common to most of the patients that I was seeing. One of these was inflammation. That inflammation was a factor that contributed to all sorts of problems in many different kinds of people. What was causing inflammation was definitely influenced by the diet that those people were following. And so I became very interested in nutritional influences on inflammation. And back during the 1980s, I began to advocate the importance of anti-inflammatory nutrients, like the omega-3 fatty acids found in fish oil, long before that became mainstream. The other area that I realized was very important for general healing and for controlling inflammation was the role of the intestinal tract, the gut, and the impact of the gut on general health, not just GI health, but systemic health. And that was an idea that was, up until about 10 years ago, was considered alternative. It was something that was not mainstream, but in the past 10 years, that's changed dramatically. There is now a very widespread recognition that gut health impacts on systemic health, and that inflammation in the gut, the so-called leaky gut, has an impact on inflammation everywhere else in the body. And that the microbes that live in our guts, the bacteria and the fungi and the protozoa, that they all impact on how healthy we are as individuals.
Great. Can you talk a little bit about what type of diseases arise from inflammation? It seems to be a very large number of them. And
Well, inflammation has a really important history in Western medicine. And going back to the ancient Greeks and Romans, there was a recognition inflammation was something that could be observed and felt. And there were four characteristics to inflammation. There was pain, there was heat, there was redness, and there was swelling. And so if you had an illness in which there was pain, heat, redness, and swelling, that was called inflammation. And of course, inflammation implies that there's a fire going on. And physiologically, there is a fire going on. Now, in the middle of the 19th century, when it became possible to study inflamed tissues under the microscope, what became clear was that inflammation involved the infiltration and invasion of tissues by white blood cells that would leave the circulation and go into those tissues that were inflamed. And all of a sudden, it became possible to recognize inflammation under the microscope. And you didn't need pain, swelling, redness, and heat to determine that inflammation was present. Over the past 40 years, it's become clear that inflammation involves the release by these cells of chemicals that circulate in the blood, and these chemicals are responsible for inflammation. So it is now possible to recognize inflammation by testing the blood, not even necessarily the tissues that are inflamed, and seeing the changes in blood that are the result of systemic inflammation. As the ability to identify inflammation increased, the concept of inflammation got much broader, and it also got much deeper. So in the history of medicine, you could recognize an inflammatory condition because its name ended in itis. So you had arthritis, colitis, pharyngitis in the throat, tonsillitis. Itis was the name that was applied to disorders in which there was obvious inflammation. Appendicitis. But it started to become clear that a lot of disorders that were not itis conditions, that had not been thought of as being inflammatory, in fact had inflammation as a critical part of them. And the first breakthrough was the recognition that heart disease involves inflammation of the small blood vessels that bring blood to the heart. It is not just an obstruction to blood flow. There is inflammation in the coronary vessels. This is especially important in women, and it says a lot about the nature of heart disease in women. Then it became possible to determine through blood tests that conditions like diabetes and high blood pressure and obesity are also associated with inflammation. And in the case of diabetes or high blood pressure, having inflammation increases the likelihood that diabetes or hypertension will develop. And so the spectrum of disorders involving inflammation has spread dramatically. It's now clear that most degenerative conditions involving the brain, like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease, also involve inflammation. And that inflammation occurs in the brain, but it may actually occur somewhere else before it spreads to the brain. In the case of Alzheimer's disease, it may start in the mouth. In Parkinson's disease, it starts in the large intestine. So the modern contemporary understanding of inflammation is that it travels throughout the body. It can start in one area and impact another area. And there is almost no chronic disease that does not involve inflammation. In fact, acute disorders often are inflammatory, even when inflammation is not recognized. You see, inflammation is necessary for wounds to heal. It is necessary to fight infection. Well, we've known that the inflammatory cells fight infection, but what's not as well known is that wound healing and scar formation are processes that involve inflammation. Now, the problem with the way that conventional medicine treats inflammation is it attempts to suppress it, and it's kind of like cut off its head. But that's not good for recovery from infection, and it's not good for the healing of wounds. The strongest anti-inflammatory drugs are the adrenal steroids, the cortisone derivatives, and those have a terrible effect on the healing of wounds, of surgery, and of fractures, because you need inflammation in order for healing to occur. And what's really important is establishing balance. You need the right amount of inflammation. You need the inflammation to get to a certain point and then begin to turn itself off so that complete healing can occur.
Doctor, can you speak a little bit more in detail about inflammation? I don't believe that most people understand the nature of inflammation and the purpose that it serves in our body. We need inflammation for survival. It's part of our system.
Inflammation is a critical process for health. And it normally occurs throughout the body, especially in the intestinal tract. One example that may allow you to understand how important normal inflammation is the recognition that in order to have normal sleep, you need inflammation. What puts your brain into stage 4, delta wave, deep sleep are inflammatory signals that come from your immune system. The immune system that is doing this are the immune cells in the lining of the intestine. That's where 2/3 of your immune cells normally live. And what is stimulating them to provide these inflammatory signals to your brain are the normal bacteria that live in your gut. So under the influence of these bacteria, your immune system puts out an inflammatory signal, which puts your brain into deep sleep. Now, what's preventing that from causing sleep during the day are your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands, especially in the morning, are putting out a lot of cortisone. That prevents the inflammatory signal from occurring. As it gets to be late in the day, it approaches midnight, the adrenal glands have gone to sleep. They're not really putting out much of their hormones anymore. That allows the inflammatory signal from your gut to get fully to your brain and induce a state of deep sleep. Then around 4 in the morning, as the adrenals wake up, that signal is suppressed and you go from deep sleep into a lighter stage of sleep with a lot of dreaming. So that's an example of how your body uses inflammation to regulate normal physiologic functions. And the inflammation is the result of specific chemicals being released into the circulation by cells of the immune system. That is the inflammatory process. Now, if you have an infection, inflammation really kicks into full gear to allow your immune system to fight the infection, to bring more of the infection-fighting cells to the place where the infection is. If you have an autoimmune disorder, inflammation plays a role there also. But then it's not, the problem that happens there is that it's not turning itself off properly. I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so once the infection has been treated, the next step is for the immune system to turn off the inflammatory response. There's a counter-regulatory, anti-inflammatory reaction, which also comes out of the cells of the immune system. And it basically says, okay, that's enough. Time to turn it off. Let's cool things down. If that doesn't happen properly, then chronic inflammation will occur. And that's the problem with so many of the diseases that plague modern Western society. These are diseases in which the inflammatory signals have not turned themselves off. They're not being properly balanced or modulated. That's what happens with heart disease, with obesity, with high blood pressure, with degenerative neurologic disorders, with chronic arthritis, with autoimmune disorders. There's a failure of the immune system to turn itself off. It happens for many reasons.
What impacts that? What do you believe is it?
That failure to balance inflammation and turn off the inflammatory signals occurs for many reasons. In part, it may be happening because of hormones. That is, a failure of the adrenal glands, for example, to turn off the inflammation. I think the reason it is so common in society today is because of dietary and lifestyle influences. The modern Western standard American diet is a very inflammatory diet. The high glycemic index, that is the high sugar content and the consumption of starches that stimulate high blood sugar, that has an inflammatory response on the body. The nature of the fat we consume, the lack of anti-inflammatory factors in the diet. My third book was The Fat Resistance Diet. It was a weight loss book based upon an anti-inflammatory diet. And I subsequently published a review journal article called Diet and Inflammation, which looked at this phenomenon. There are components of food that help our bodies turn off inflammation and produce just the right amount. And there are components of food that confuse our immune systems and result in excess inflammation, with the down-regulating signal not being heard or not occurring. So high sugar foods, high glycemic index carbohydrates, excess dietary fat and unhealthy fats, especially the kinds of fats that are found in processed vegetable oils, which are so commonly added to our diet, those stimulate inflammatory signals and the maintenance of inflammation. Whereas high fiber foods, high omega-3 foods, those stimulate the counter-regulatory responses that turn off inflammation. Now, what I found in the course of my research was that some of the most important regulatory chemicals are found in fruits and vegetables and teas, herbs and spices, and to some extent in nuts and seeds. These are the polyphenolic compounds, especially the bioflavonoids, that impact on inflammation in a way that turns it off, that helps your body downregulate it without being immune suppressive. So they have a balancing effect on inflammation. Now, there are about 400 of these molecules in the human diet. The modern Western diet gives us about 1,000 milligrams a day, which actually is inadequate. Traditional Asian diets provide 5 times as many of these regulatory chemicals. And so one of the things that I set out to do in my medical practice and in my teaching and in my writing was to create dietary approaches that would be rich in polyphenols to help my patients and my readers and my students that I was teaching find ways to turn off inflammation by increasing the consumption of these polyphenolic molecules and flavonoids.
What happens with the Western diet? It's very difficult to get all the nutritional supplements that you need. So, what do you recommend, or to an average American? How do they acquire the necessary vitamins and the nutrition that they need if they cannot get access to purely organic food. There's a scarcity of organic products out there, and people, there's also a factor of affordability and accessibility.
Right. Okay. Well,
What's the
I think,
alternative option?
well, it's not so much an alternative to diet. I think that a healthy diet is the foundation for healing and for maintaining health. A healthy diet does not have to be an expensive or esoteric diet, but it should be a diet, and it has to be a diet that is rich in vegetables and fruits, 7 to 9 servings a day, as opposed to the 2 to 3 that most people in this country are eating. It should be a diet that is high in fiber, which often will come from those vegetables and fruits, and low in sugar and low in added fats. That's achievable. However, it may be difficult to do that optimally. Nutritional supplementation can make a major contribution to restoring health. Now, most people think of nutritional supplements as vitamins and minerals. Actually, the supplements that, in my experience, are the most important are supplements that go beyond vitamins and minerals, because you can actually get vitamins from the American diet if you eat fortified foods. It's not the vitamins. To some extent, it's the minerals. It's the anti-inflammatory nutrients that are really important to supplement, to make sure that you're getting them regularly on a daily basis.
What's the benefit of having, if the person can adjust or can start consuming more anti-inflammatory products, what's the benefit from it? What happens when you start regulating or balancing your inflammation?
The great thing about using nutrition to reduce inflammation is that it doesn't create side effects. It's not like taking a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, which may help your arthritis, but raises your blood pressure and damages your stomach. There is no downside to the nutritional regulation of inflammation. The same nutrients, in fact, that help one type of inflammation will very likely help another type of inflammation. So instead of your asthma getting worse because you're taking aspirin for a headache, your asthma actually gets better when you use the polyphenols to reduce the headache or the pain that you have. I mean, that's the beauty of nutritional healing.
While we're on the topic, can we discuss different types of inflammation? You've mentioned allergies is caused by inflammation.
Right. Well, there are actually many patterns of inflammation, and there are even many patterns of allergic inflammation. What all inflammation has in common is the release of chemicals as the result of cells that are found circulating in the blood, going into inflamed tissues. And those tissues might not even be visible. It may be the fat tissues around your waist that's the source of the inflammation and the inflammatory chemicals. There are distinct patterns of inflammation that can be measured and that occur because of specific types of cells releasing specific types of chemical mediators. Sometimes a conventional treatment for one type of inflammation actually aggravates another type of inflammation. When you approach inflammation nutritionally, it is possible to work at a deeper level and suppress all types of inflammation at the same time. It was discovering this that really changed the way that I practice medicine, and that led me into a practice based on nutritional healing.
What supplements would you recommend people start utilizing?
The supplements that are important in part depend upon the nature of a person's diet. So when I give people supplements, I will do measures to see the level of inflammation. And what they may be missing or low in. Probably the most important of the classic nutrients, the things that everyone recognizes as nutrients, like vitamins and minerals and fats, the most important supplements for combating inflammation in the arena of fats, it's the omega-3 fats that are found in fish oils and in certain plant seed oils, like flax oil and chia seed oil. Minerals that are most important for combating inflammation include magnesium, selenium, and zinc. And in the books that I've written, The Allergy Solution being the last one, I go into the role that these play in reducing inflammation and how to optimize your dietary input of those minerals. From a vitamin perspective, it's probably vitamin E, and to some extent vitamin C are the most important of the anti-inflammatory vitamins. There's a lot of misunderstanding of vitamin E, and some of the forms of vitamin E to which we are exposed in the modern Western diet, derived from soybean oil, for example, may actually be aggravating allergic inflammation. So I think it's important to look for whole foods and natural sources and not rely on manufactured foods that are using corn oil, soybean oil, rapeseed oil to supply concentrated fats that are not really having the effect that natural fats have. Now, as far as the polyphenols, I use them a lot in my practice. And I recommend a polyphenol-rich diet to my patients. But not everybody is able to do that because of food sensitivities or gut problems. And so I look to supplementation with sources of polyphenols to help people overcome inflammation and pain. The most exciting source of polyphenols for me is a food that is a staple in Middle Eastern cuisine. It's been used as part of healing regimens from Western to Southern Asia. It's part of the Islamic healing traditions, Ayurvedic healing in India. And this is a food called black cumin seed. It's been largely ignored in the Western Hemisphere. And I think it's really time for black cumin seed to take the place that it deserves in the superfoods that are known to promote health and healing. Black cumin seed and its oil have been used traditionally to treat all sorts of disorders and conditions, and are among the most heavily researched types of food oils for healing purposes. A lot of that research, of course, has been done in different parts of Asia and Europe, but attention to black cumin seed oil is coming to the Western world, and that is going to have a huge impact on nutritional healing in this country. So black cumin seed oil, the main ingredient of it that has been studied is something called thymoquinone. Thymoquinone is anti-inflammatory. It has effects on the brain that are stimulating. It has anti-toxic effects. And as I researched black cumin seed oil, which is also called black seed, sometimes it's called black seed rather than black cumin seed, and it has nothing to do with the spice cumin. Cumin is used in Indian cuisine, and it has its own unique flavor and its own set of very special effects, but it's not the same as black cumin seed or black seed. Black seed is literally black, and the oil is naturally very dark. What thymoquinone can do is to alter the function of the cells involved in inflammation to naturally modify the inflammatory response. And black seed oil in general has been shown to have anti-toxic effects. So it's one of the things that's so exciting to me about the use of black cumin seed is that it protects against the effects of internal and external toxins. And the anti-toxic effects of black cumin seed have been studied in all sorts of tissues, probably all the tissues of the body, from the brain to the GI tract, the kidneys, the liver, the heart even. Black cumin seed oil protects against toxic injury and insult, helps the body recover from toxic injury, and helps to balance the inflammatory response. There have been all sorts of animal studies with black cumin seed, but there also have been a large number of human clinical trials done with black cumin seed oil, and thymoquinone that have shown beneficial effects with almost no side effects.
And this is one of the main ingredients in your new proprietary supplement, correct?
Right. Well,
Dr. Galland's TLC.
what Stas asked me is, what were the exact words? Is there a supplement you'd really like to develop? I knew exactly what one of the ingredients was going to be. It was going to be black cumin seed oil with a standardized amount of thymoquinone. So the T in TLC stands for thymoquinone. And I went right to it because it's really hard to find a good source of black cumin seed oil. Now, you can find black cumin seeds in the Middle Eastern markets, in Brooklyn, for example, and that's fine if you want to use it as part of your cooking. But if you really want to use it for medicinal purposes, just getting capsules of black cumin seed oil may not do it. Here's the thing about traditional cuisines and nutritional healing. People who are eating traditional diets, Middle Eastern diets, Indian diets, they're eating that way for life or for decades. And even those ingredients that are very poorly absorbed, they absorb a little bit every day, tiny amounts, and they build up in their body. Well, yeah, that's fine if that's your background and that's the way you've been eating for decades. But if you're starting out as someone who's sick and you need to get the benefits of that cuisine quickly, then you're going to need a supplement, and you're going to need a supplement in a form that is very bioavailable and that is readily absorbed. And that is something that can be done with black cumin seed oil. And that's what I went to Stas with. And I said, I want to see a really good bioavailable form of black cumin seed oil, because I think that is the essential supplement that I would want for most of my patients. I then thought about, okay, what would I add to that? What are some of my other favorite supplements? And the C in TLC stands for curcumin. So the other Asian superfood spice ingredient that has really rocked the world of science is turmeric. Turmeric has gotten a lot of attention in this country, and the main ingredients in turmeric that are anti-inflammatory, the curcuminoids, have been extensively studied, and they've probably been as extensively studied as black seed and thymoquinone have. And actually, black cumin seed and turmeric, thymoquinone and curcumin have synergistic effects. They've especially been shown to help metabolism and weight loss in conjunction with one another, but they have in test tubes synergistic effects on the processes that are causing pain and inflammation. So they are a great combination. Now, the L in TLC belongs to luteolin. Luteolin is a bioflavonoid. It's found in a number of vegetables. And so it's a natural substance. What I love about luteolin is that it goes right to the source of inflammation at the genetic level in the cells, and it turns off the signals that are coming from the genes that cause inflammation. And it has a unique effect on a group of cells called mast cells, which play an important role in the mast cells, M-A-S-T, mast cells, that play an important role in the inflammatory response, especially the allergic part of the inflammatory response. Mast cells are fascinating cells in our bodies. They're these, compared to most white blood cells and most of the cells involved in inflammation, they're quite large. And they don't really circulate much in the blood. They're mostly found in the tissues, and they're very primitive cells. That is, they're found in all sorts of primitive animals who had not yet developed the kind of sophisticated immune system that humans have. Mast cells release over 200 chemicals that provoke inflammatory symptoms and allergic symptoms. Histamine comes from mast cells, but there are many more. And they are part of the process that drives allergy and weight gain and inflammation. And luteolin has a unique ability to turn off hyperactive mast cells. So it seemed to me that luteolin would be a key ingredient in TLC and would work in conjunction with the thymoquinone and the curcumin to produce exactly the kind of inflammation balancing effect that I was looking for clinically in working with my patients. So I'm very excited personally to have this product, to take it myself and to be able to give it to my patients.
And you spoke a little bit about the absorption, right? The necessity of fast absorption. And I believe Stas at Atlanova has a particular technological specialty of how they deliver product.
Right. Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to work with Stas and Atlanova is because I knew that Stas was using liposomal technology. And liposomes enhance the absorption of many substances that are not well absorbed normally. In fact, black cumin seed, as nutritious as it is and as high in healing polyphenols as it is, has a limited effect on the physiology of the body because most of what you need in the black cumin seed does not get into your body. That's why you've got to be eating it for years and years and accumulating it slowly. The same is true for turmeric. 99% of the active ingredients in turmeric are not well absorbed when you just eat it as part of food. Now, there is a tradition of using black pepper to enhance absorption. And that has a limited benefit, however. If you add black pepper to your food, you'll enhance the absorption for 1 or 2 doses. But within a week, your body accommodates to that effect and you're no longer increasing absorption. So we really need, if we really want to make the most of these nutrients, if we really want to use them therapeutically for healing, we need liposomal technology. By encapsulating them in these nanomolecules, their absorption is greatly enhanced. You need a much lower dose. You can actually take a pill, so you don't have to worry about how this tastes or how it mixes into your diet or your food. And you can get the healing benefits in much more quickly.
Excellent. And liposomal technology is fairly new?
Well, liposomal technology has been around for a few decades. It's gotten improved and better. Its safety has been very well established. And I think that most anti-inflammatory substances have their absorption enhanced enhanced by liposomal technology.
And what is your recommendation in regards to consuming TLC?
The ingredients in TLC are very safe. They have a really high safety profile that's been tested. I think it should be taken every day, and our goal is to have a dosage and an absorption that allows 1 capsule twice a day to have the effects that we're looking for.
And can this be taken by anybody, or do you need to be sick with inflammation to?
Well, I recommend TLC for prevention and for the treatment of minor ailments. If you're really sick, if you're taking medication, if you're under a doctor's care, you should always check with your doctor about what you're taking. But for the great majority of us, the idea was to have something that would improve energy, relieve inflammation, improve general well-being. And if you look at the studies that have been done in people who are not particularly sick with black cumin seed or with curcuminoids, there's an improvement in mood and energy, general wellness increases. So in my practice, I'll be giving it to people to treat specific disorders. But outside my I'm going to be taking it because I feel better doing it.
Are there any potential side effects that people should be concerned about?
The side effects are going to be pretty minimal, and almost anything that you take in pill form potentially could upset your stomach, although actually black cumin seed is used to heal the GI tract. Curcumin is used to heal the large intestine and the small intestine. So yes, something may happen, but I wouldn't let a GI problem prevent me from trying it, because it actually has been shown to help heal the stomach and help heal the small intestine and large intestine.
And I'm assuming that your blend is specifically designed for the proper balance of the 3. Obviously, all 3 can be taken independently, but
in designing TLC, what I did was I looked at the research literature and I tried to figure out, okay, what's the dose that has been really shown to have an impact on people, on real people in
this
real
is
life.
scientifically backed.
Yeah, the scientific literature. So I reviewed that. And then I had a discussion with Stas and with the liposomal specialists about, okay, well, what kind of dose do we need using liposomal technology to get that effect? Because it's not going to be the same dose that you would use if you were taking, getting something from food or using a technology that was not liposomal.
What's next on your agenda? Do you have anything planned for future? Do you have any future books coming out or any other supplements you're working in the mix that we should prepare for?
When it comes to supplements, I'm always looking to find things that can meet a need that my patients have that has not been met by supplements that exist or by drugs that exist. And so whatever the next thing is going to be something that meets a need that I identify that I want to try and do something about. I mean, basically, I'm a problem solver. People bring problems to me and I try to figure out, what do we need to do to fix this problem or to help the person heal it? And how can I be of service in doing that? Now, often I'll find if I look in enough remote places that there are supplements that someone has come up with a supplement or a solution to this problem. It may be hard to find, but we'll try to bring it in. I could not really find a source of black cumin seed that was acceptable. And there were very few sources of luteolin, and they weren't exactly balanced in the form that I wanted them to be. There are a lot of choices of curcumin. I wanted to bring that in to round out the effects of TLC. I'm not sure what I'm going to look at next.
This is where the relationship with Atlanova and Stas is very valuable, where Atlanova is great at sourcing high quality ingredients and the right technology and packaging it all together for distribution. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Stas and Atlanova and how you guys came about?
Okay, well, I've known Stas for several years, and what I know about him is that he has a real personal stake in nutritional healing. And I mean, this is not basically just a business for him. I mean, this is a mission. This is something that he really cares about personally. And that's one of the reasons that I felt confident in working with Stas and with Atlanova. And I realized as we designed this product and we brought it through to the completion of the finished product that he was very careful about sourcing, about where the sources were and who he worked with. And that's really important to me because I'm always very careful about the sources.
Absolutely. And obviously the end result is happy customers and healthy people. So
Sure, yeah. I mean, you're doing this, you want it to have the desired effect. You want to be able to help people and put all of this research and science to practical use.
So as a finale, would you give some recommendations in regards to certain lifestyles, lifestyle changes or improvements that people should be taking to, naturally lower their inflammation and naturally start improving their health?
Yeah, I think the components of a healthy lifestyle are really well known and have been well studied. Okay, and they start with sleep and activity. I mean, let's not even talk about nutrition to begin with. You need a good night's sleep. You should sleep in a dark room. You should not have a computer in bed with you or a smartphone, those things are the enemy of sleep. And you shouldn't be watching TV probably late at night because that's also the enemy of sleep. You should get to sleep early enough that you can wake up spontaneously without an alarm and feel rested. I mean, that's one component. And that is really challenging. I get that. It's hard for me to do. It's hard for a lot of people to do. It's certainly not part of the American lifestyle, but sleep is really important. Activity. You should engage in some form of physical activity on a daily basis. And walking is really the best and most important form of activity. It's the simplest. Walk for 30 minutes a day, an hour if you can do it. There are forms of exercise and activity that actually promote inflammation. So if you are going to train, and I happen to really like exercise and I really like sports and training, build up to it slowly. Condition yourself. Because if you don't, you will actually cause inflammation and injury. So moderate intensity exercise on a daily basis plays an important role in an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. And if you want to do things that are really strenuous, condition yourself so you can do it without injury. Okay, so that's just foundational. I mean, that's something that is available to everybody. And it's something that we should all be learning and getting help with doing from the time we're kids. From a nutritional perspective, what's important for an anti-inflammatory lifestyle is a diet that is based on whole foods, 7 to 9 servings of vegetables and fruits a day, high in fiber, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains if you're not grain sensitive, avoiding added sugar, avoiding refined carbohydrates, avoiding added fats, especially from things like corn oil and soybean oil that are actually pro-inflammatory, eating sources of high omega-3 fats, either flaxseed or chia seeds or oily cold water fish, if you're eating fish. Enough protein, and that's something that really needs to be individualized, the amount of protein that a person needs. And I address that issue in the Fat Resistance Diet, my diet book. Dietary supplements can be really helpful. First of all, I do believe that it's important for people to use fruits, vegetables, herbs, spices, and teas that are high in bioflavonoids. So berries, for example, great fruits to be eating. Blueberries, blackberries, raspberries. You can tell that there's a high flavonoid content to a food by its color. The deep blue, red, and purple colors that are naturally found in food, those are a sign of high anthocyanins, which are among the most beneficial of the flavonoids. Of course, you need to avoid foods that are artificially colored. Those artificial colors do not carry health benefits, and they carry health risks with them. So as far as supplementation goes, that needs to be individualized based upon nutritional adequacy of the diet. I rarely use multivitamins. I think their value is overrated. I do find that a lot of my patients need supplementation with magnesium, especially if they're under a lot of stress. Selenium, especially if they're not eating cold water, ocean fish. Zinc, especially if they're not eating dark meat, turkey and poultry, or egg yolk or red meat, which are the most potent sources of zinc. Or pumpkin seeds, which is a very good vegetable source of zinc. And I do find that supplements made from foods, from extracts of foods that are rich in flavonoids, have been very beneficial to ameliorating inflammation and improving energy.
Just really quick, doctor. In regards to people that have an inflammatory disease, that are taking certain medications on a regular basis, how will TLC play in parallel to the medication?
Well, for most of the inflammatory
What should people be concerned with?
Well, the only issue taking TLC in addition to medication is how will TLC impact on the body's metabolism of this medication? That does not happen very often because the components of TLC do not have major effects on the drug metabolizing enzymes in the liver or the intestines. There is likely to be a synergistic effect in terms of the relief of inflammation, but with the use of TLC, and there is absolutely going to be a synergistic effect from following an anti-inflammatory diet. I mean, the issue that I have with a lot of the drugs that are used to treat inflammation is they're used instead of diet. If someone were to follow a nutritional approach to healing inflammation, they may be able to reduce the dose of medication that they take, even if they're not stopping it altogether. It will support the effects of the drugs. I see that over and over again.
People should try to attempt to solve the core problem rather than the surface problems, which I think the dietary changes and the lifestyle changes.
Right. Well, the lifestyle and dietary changes may solve the core problem, but they also support all other approaches to healing. It's just like getting the right amount of exercise and the right amount of sleep and the right amount of rest. It's like mind-body medicine. Having a positive outlook and good personal relationships and a good relationship with your doctor, that helps everything else work better. There's a fascinating study that I read that looked at the issue of compliance and response to treatment. And it really says a lot about how healing occurs. This was a study that looked at people, I think, were being treated for heart disease. And they were being given some drugs. And the question is, who complied with the drug treatment. What the study showed was that if you took the medication and you were responsible in taking the medication, you did much better than people who were not responsible in taking the medication. But here's the fascinating part of the study that didn't come out. In the placebo arm, where people were getting an inactive placebo, those people who were compliant in taking the placebo did better than those people who were not compliant with taking the placebo. So there definitely is an effect of attitude and personal responsibility on outcomes.
Thank you so much for your time. This has been an incredible amount of information. We hope to see this product out on the market very soon. We want to wish you good luck and continue creating new products and helping people get better.